Hi guys, and welcome to this first video that I'm going to be making about the zodiac signs existing as archetypes. So the title will say, understand your sign, the Aries archetype. This is not necessarily going to be about your sun sign. It's not necessarily going to be about your moon sign. It's just going to be about the archetype as it kind of just exists in astrology. What does Aries mean? Like, we're talking semantics, we're talking mythology kind of, and we're talking about just how to understand what Aries means, what Taurus means, what all of the signs mean as they exist, because there is a general way to understand them. And of course we can talk about moon signs, we can talk about sun signs, and the archetype will interact with whatever that placement is. But that's another series for another time. I think that this is kind of a good place to start if you're just getting into astrology and you want to learn about what Aries means. It's kind of like learning a new language. We have all these weird names for things. We have all of these nouns, all of these conjunctions and sextiles and the houses. What is that? Kind of complicated. So that's why we're going to start just with the archetypes. That's what we're doing today. We're going to start with Aries, of course. We have to. One day I want to do a series where we start with Pisces and go backwards, but it just doesn't make sense if you're trying to teach something, because you have to go through like life. Like, you have to go through the sequence, because it makes more sense that way. I'm sorry, Pisces. I'm a Pisces. I always have to wait for my video last when people do series on astrology. But that's, got my gripe out of my system. We are going to start with Aries. I actually brought with me these cards from the Tarot Rider-Waite deck. Very well known. You've probably heard of it. If you guys are into New Age spirituality at all, you've probably used it yourself. So if we're starting with Aries, I just wanted to pick like two cards that, if combined, I think totally personify the Aries archetype. So for me, obviously, I think the most obvious, but obviously the Fool. The Fool is definitely total awesome Aries energy, totally unbridled, just starting out, setting the first foot in life, totally oblivious to the trials and tribulations, just wanting to get out there and get shit done, and not even get shit done, but just kind of be in life and begin your journey with a positive mindset, and just doing it because you can. Just doing life because you can do life. That's very Aries. Also, Ace of Wands, because we gotta have some pure fire energy in there. And I guess what these two have in common is that they're kind of zeros in a way. They're kind of nebulous in the sense that there's no specific trial or tribulation that those cards are indicating. It's just the beginning of something. It's the beginning of our lives. It's the beginning of our journeys, and it's this young, ferocious energy. So, just kind of not aware of where life could take them, and that is something that we can use to describe the Aries as well. Not saying that if you're an Aries that you're naive, or you're not cautious, or you're not wise. Aries is very wise. Aries is very present, and this is something that in the zodiac is typically characterized through the infant archetype, through the baby archetype. Aries are often called the babies of the zodiac, so that might be something you've heard a lot if you're an Aries. There's nothing, it sounds condescending, but there truly is nothing condescending about that. First of all, if you're an Aries, and people are calling you a baby because you're an Aries, it's probably not your whole chart. Like, you probably have other placements in there that are grounding you. Other placements, maybe you have some Pisces stuff going on, make you more wise. But, you know, a lot of Aries sun signs do embody this really, I think, wonderful thing, which is this, it's kind of joie de vivre, but in reality, it's just not being afraid, and it's wanting to think of life and practicing life as a verb, okay? And that is amazing. That's a great characteristic. That's a great trait to have. And why wouldn't Aries be that way? It hasn't gone through the different houses yet. It hasn't evolved yet. It is, again, at the beginning of its journey. It is the personified identity. It is our first taste of ego, and we're really super excited for it because we probably just had our egos dissolved in the 12th house, which is the Piscean house, where our egos are dissolved, hopefully transcended, hopefully, and we're kind of floating in the cosmos, so to speak. And so if we're coming back and we're going through the circle of life, I guess, if we're going through this karmic circle, next stop, right next to the 12th house, is going to be the first house of Aries. So just do it all over again, basically, is what maybe happens. Who knows? That's the story that astrology is telling us. So we didn't have egos, and if you do want to think of Aries as the infant, Aries as the baby, I kind of think of Pisces as the womb. It's like this very nebulous cosmic womb where, if you think of a pregnant mother, she knows her baby, but she doesn't really know her baby as a person. It's just this concept that's inside of her. It's a physical being, but in terms of how we think of ourselves, in terms of how we think of other people, we react and we have relationships to people based off of what they say they are, who they say they are, and what their name is, what personality characteristics they assign themselves, what personality they project. This is all ego stuff. It's identity. It's saying, I am this. This is me. Those types of sentences all have to do with the first house, all have to do with Aries. So Aries is born, and what is the first thing a baby does when they're born is they cry and wail, and everyone's so excited because the baby's alive and the baby's fine and the baby's going to be all right. The baby grows up and it becomes a 6-month-old, a 1-year-old. Now, the Aries archetype is not known for being very articulate, not known, that, again, doesn't mean that you're not articulate if you're an Aries, but that's not how it processes the world. It's kind of like the water signs. I think the fire and water signs have similarities in that it hits something here first before it hits something here. Okay, the earth signs, they're very pragmatic, and there's some mulling about that involves. The air signs, obviously very cognitive, but if we're talking about fire, we're talking about spirit energy, we're talking about gut energy. And Aries being cardinal as well also means that it just kind of does first and asks questions later. Some people might attribute impulsiveness with the Aries sign, but truly it's just a reaction that is extremely powerful that they have inside of themselves, inside of this archetype. There is an impatience that comes from this archetype being so present in the moment. Just like a baby, when they're at all stressed, when they're all in distress, when they want something, when they need something, they have to have an instinct that they need it, and they do. And as soon as they sense something is off, they start crying and wailing, and then someone comes and helps them, hopefully. And if they're an even bigger infant, toddler, they're just gonna, run after it themselves because they don't know any better. But if we're thinking about this like the Fool in tarot, it's not, the picture, even the depiction, it's not a completely, I don't even think that it's, threatening anything. It's totally just a blank slate and pure ambition. And that is something that this archetype also has. It's ambition, it's drive, it's ferocity, again, this pure fire energy. So the lesson here is that we're taking our egos and we're defining them with instinct. And the first house in astrology might tell us that our parents sometimes put stuff on us when we're little, when we're infants, and want us to be a certain way, and that can put planets in your first house. But the rising sign overall, you can have the rising sign of one of your parents' sun signs, but overall this is your total intrinsic identity. It's what does your Fool look like? How does he dress? How does he talk? How does he act? Who is he or she? So that is Aries. Aries identity, Aries ego. It's this awesome, cool new toy that they get to play with and tinker with and show to other people, hey, look at me. I am blank. I am something. It's a revelation because I was stuck in the cosmos when my ego was dissolved in Pisces, and I just came back, and this is who I am. This is going to be my persona. This is going to be my shtick for the rest of this journey. So it's a very important archetype. Your rising sign, again, is the cusp of your first house, is kind of what your Fool looks like, what your persona is. And when you were a baby, it was how you learned to get attention from other people. It was how you had to behave in order to receive nurturing. You probably don't remember learning to ask for attention that way. It's a very intrinsic thing. It might have to do with attachment styles, the way your mother was or wasn't attached to you, and the way that she decided to nurture you. All of those things play a role into your Aries first sign archetype. If you're an Aries sun sign, you probably just have really big kahunas, basically. Aries as a sun sign is super optimistic, super happy to everyone that I know as an Aries is super happy to be an Aries, and they usually go on and do amazing things. They can be trailblazers, they can be mavericks and rebels, and just people who are on that journey and totally intrinsically know that it is theirs. Okay? This is something that its opposite archetype, which is Libra, kind of struggles with, because they feel like their journey is for other people. Their journey is on behalf of other people. Their journey is sponsored by other people. They have to get other people's approval. Aries, not so much. Just kind of go about, really. Just get it done. I want it. I need it. I have it. Or I have to have it. And that's kind of the approach towards life. Life is a verb with the Aries archetype. And that is very very inspiring to me as a Pisces. I think it's great. I struggle to self-start, but an Aries totally knows how to do that. The archetype totally is pure fire, pure flame. Thanks. That was my dog. Another thing that's important to learn about Aries as an archetype, as this first sign in the zodiac, is that it is responsible for, it rules over the first house. If that kind of confuses you, the whole house thing, just an easy way to kind of at least understand what people are talking about, or at least your astrology geek friends are talking about when they talk about it, is the house is just directly correlating to the number of the sign. So if Aries is 1, it's the first house. If someone says first house, they're talking about the Aries archetype. They're talking about 8th house, they're talking about the Scorpio archetype, and they might be talking about things in people's charts, planets that fall in those houses. Another video for another time. But first house, the Aries archetype, is an angular house. So you have 4 houses that are like the, oh, I keep doing this. Boop. They're the skeleton of your house. Of your natal chart. So natal chart is a circle, you have lines going through it. These 4 houses are extremely important. They are extremely intrinsic, they are extremely powerful in your development, and they mean a lot to you. The first house is like, that house means the most to you. The Aries archetype is really important for everybody. Everybody cares about who they are. Everybody cares about how they come across. Everybody cares about their personality and the things that they prescribe to themselves. Anything that you prescribe to yourself with an I am sentence, I am blank, anything you can put in there, it's all Aries. It's the whole point of the archetype, is that it can call itself something. It can define itself. So, with that being said, that is our Aries archetype. It's pretty cool, pretty rad. Again, not having so much to do with the sun sign. I know I mentioned a few things about the sun sign, but we're just telling the story, really. Thank you for watching and listening. Be sure to subscribe if you want to see the next videos that I'm going to come out in this archetype series, which will be about Taurus and Gemini. I look forward to those 2 in the coming weeks. And thank you so much. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.